Hey guys, so I'm going to be reading Of Wizards and Heroes again today. The last time that I recorded, I was at the beginning of chapter 3, and it cut out somewhere like in the middle. So I'm going to go back to there, and so for this to make sense, you're gonna have to rewatch the first video because I'm starting directly where we left off. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, and this is by Stories for Someone on AO3. Shit! With a startled laugh Harry swerved as they doubled back and opened fire. He barrel-rolled again, and the bullets spiraled past him. His body moved instinctively, shifting into old habits. He twisted and rolled, spiraled and swooped, never dropping speed, never hesitating. Nothing could touch him. Harry was grinning now, utterly surrendering to the feel of air rushing past him. No spells, no magic, just him on a broom and the whistle of bullets cascading around him. Oh, it was Christmas! He should have done this years ago. Either side of him, those fighter jets began to converge, trapping him in the middle. Harry glanced sideways, flashed the pilot a grin, then dropped out of the air. He spread his arms like a diver, his broom gripped tightly in one hand. Below him the river gleamed in the moonlight. Harry waited until the moment before impact, before he mounted his broom mid-fall and swooped up, skimming the water's edge. Brooklyn Bridge arose before him. Above him the fighter jets whined as they tried to drop altitude to follow him. Harry's eyes suddenly gleamed with mischief. Eyeing the bridge ahead, he dropped right down so he was practically upon the water. The jets dropped lower. Bullets rained in his wake. Harry held his path. The jets dropped lower. He shot forward, angled low across the broom. The jets dropped lower. Then the bridge was right there, and Harry let out a yell as he yanked the tip of his broom up with as much force as he could muster. The broom turned vertical and shot directly up into the sky. The jets, however, attempting to follow, they angled up. But how many fighter jets have the pivot capacity of a 5-foot broom? Their engines screamed, and the towers of the bridge loomed in their wake. The jets swerved frantically, barely missing the top. Unstable and disoriented, they teetered in the air, barely holding altitude, shooting forward and away from Harry. When the pilots had regained control and looked again into the night sky, the small flying figure had long gone. Take a sip of the ice water. The ice water. Harry sniggered to himself as he flew aimlessly above the city. He knew the agents were still on high alert, and he needed to disappear, but not through magical means. If there was just somewhere, there, below him, an outrageous gleaming hotel, flocked with cars pulling up left, right, and center as extraordinarily dressed people streamed through the doors. Some were very public and yet private and secure, entirely exclusive to those invited. It was perfect. Harry veered his path towards the hotel and landed inconspicuously a few blocks away. With room shrunk and disillusion charmed place, Harry emerged onto the streets once more, quickly transfiguring his clothes as he went. By the time he reached the doors of the hotel, a dark-haired figure tailored in an equally dark suit stood before the bouncers. A Rolex watch glinted on his wrist, his sharp eyes gleamed behind tinted glasses, the jade cufflinks setting off the pine shades in his eyes. His dark, disheveled hair, but that his dark hair disheveled, but that he somehow managed to pull off. Even though he was shorter than them, the bouncers automatically took a step back. He stood an imposing figure with a quiet aura of authority. "Invitation," one of them asked gruffly. "Oh, come now, I'm sure there's no need for that." The figure tossed him a pair of car keys and nodded towards the scarlet Ferrari that had suddenly appeared behind him. "Stick this old one somewhere, would you?" And then, without a single hint of befuddlement, Harry strode past them. Not 2 minutes behind him, Clint Barton skidded to a stop and stared at the doorway his target had disappeared through. His hand touched his ear. "Director, you're not going to believe where this guy of yours just walked into." "He did what?" Harry smirked as he accepted a cocktail from a passing waiter. Absent-mindedly swirling the glass, he gazed out across the scene. Incredibly rich people conversing with even more incredibly rich, dressed in subtle fortunes glinting off their wrists and dangling from their ears. Couples were dancing elegantly in the center, twirling around one another in a way that only the rich can ever pull off. It reminded him somewhat of the Yule Ball all those years ago, though he wished he had known the charm to transfigure his robes. Perhaps Ron would have cheered up a little, though at least Harry now knew how to dance without making a complete idiot of himself. The countless balls held in his honor after the defeat of Voldemort had kind of made it a priority. Nobody wanted to see the savior of the wizarding world fall flat on his face. I would like to see that. Maybe that's why he felt inclined to step out across the dance floor and rescue the poor girl from her balding, sweating partner who looked a little too close for her liking. Harry didn't need to be a legilimens to hear her crying out for help. "Mind if I cut in?" His voice was smooth and cool, with an underlying steel that had the man thinking twice about objecting. He scuttled away, and Harry stepped in, transitioning effortlessly into the next waltz as the music switched to 3/4 time. The lady, who Harry noticed was actually quite pretty, looked at him gratefully. "Sir, you are an absolute saint." Harry laughed. It was my pleasure. It's not every day I get the opportunity to dance with such a beautiful partner. "And a charmer, no less," she remarked. My, how shall I ever repay you?" "You can allow me to buy you a drink?" "Done." They laughed quietly. Harry couldn't help but feel slightly pleased. 2 women had actually noticed he existed in the past week, and they didn't even know he was famous in a distant world. It was good to know his charm hadn't fallen out of practice in the long years of vampire hunting. In fact, he couldn't even remember the last time he'd flirted with anyone, ever since he swallowed. No, not here, not now, not when everything was starting to feel human again, when the pain of watching this time steal everything you once held dear was finally starting to fade. The two continued spinning slowly across the dance floor. "So am I allowed to know the name of my rescuer?" The woman's voice tugged him back to the present. Harry realized with a sudden irony that she was also red-haired, not that he had a type or anything. Harry, just Harry. Pepper Potts. Wait, so in his old world he had Ginny, that was who he dated, and then in this world the first person he comes across is Natasha, who has red hair, and then he comes across Pepper. I mean, you say you don't have a type, but I'm kind of seeing a pattern here. Harry, just Harry. Pepper Potts. "So, Miss Potts, what brings you to this fine ball this evening?" "My boss, Tony," the woman confessed. Her smile turned wry. "He's somewhat on the impulsive side." "And you're what, his minder?" "His PA, so, yes," Harry chuckled. "Lucky guy, having someone as kind as you watching out for him." "And you've known me what, a minute?" Harry grinned. "I am an excellent judge of character," she gasped as Harry spun her into an elaborate twirl and swept her fleetingly off the ground. It was a move he had learned from Bill and Fleur's daughter. "A little warning, maybe," she chastised, but Pepper was smiling. "And where's the fun in that?" She laughed. They danced in companionable silence for a few more minutes before Pepper spoke again. "Honestly, I worry about him. Constantly." "Worry about him, or his state of mind?" Pepper looked at him sharply, and Harry sighed. "I went through a period of becoming very withdrawn and isolated. I put all of my friends through hell worrying about me. I was safe physically, but at the mercy of my own thoughts. I understand what that's like." She nodded slowly. "He's been through a lot recently. He barely even seems like the same person anymore. He doesn't sleep. He barely eats. I don't even know why he comes to these stupid galas. Is he here tonight?" "He was just by the bar earlier. Pepper's forehead creased with worry. "I can't see him. He was right there, and I just—" "Hey, calm down." Harry brought their waltz to a stop. "I'm sure he went out for some air. Do you want some help looking?" "If it's not an inconvenience." "Nonsense. Now come on. You take the downstairs, I'll take the upstairs." Abruptly, Pepper grasped his hand firmly. "Thank you, Harry. I may not be an excellent judge of character, but I know you're one of the good ones." And then she was gone. Blinking, Harry smiled slightly before turning and striding off to find a rogue billionaire. Maybe Hermione was right. Maybe he did have a saving people thing. Okay, so this episode's a little shorter because I had to just finish Chapter 3. That was Of Wizards and Heroes, Chapter 3 by A Story for Someone. I'm probably going to make another video of chapter 4 today, and yeah, I'll see you guys later.